Let's take a look at transportation, managing the flow of the supply chain. Now, this is a really long and dense chapter, so I'm going to see if I can distill it down into a couple different sections. And this is what we'll look at. So let's start with the role of transportation in supply chain management. As you already know, a supply chain is a network of organizations that are separated by distance and time, with transportation allowing these organizations to extend the reach of their supply chains beyond local supplier capabilities and market demand. With efficient, effective transportation capabilities, organizations can build global supply chains that leverage low-cost sourcing opportunities, which allows them to compete in new markets. Hence, transportation efficiency promotes the competitiveness of a supply chain. In terms of supply chain management, cost-effective transportation helps companies gain access to higher quality, lower price materials, and realize economies of scale in production. Likewise, low-cost transportation improves demand fulfillment opportunities. As such, transportation plays a key role in supply chain design, strategy development, and total cost management. Availability and efficiency are not enough. Transportation service must also be effective. Inexpensive transportation is of little value to a supply chain if the product does not arrive as scheduled and damage-free to the correct location. High-quality, customer-focused transportation has a direct impact on an organization's success, as it delivers the right product at the right time in the right quantity and quality at the right cost to the right destination. Additionally, transportation creates supply chain flexibility. By working with carriers that offer a range of transit times and service options, organizations can satisfy supply chain demands for expedited and standard delivery speeds. Well, let's look at role inhibitors. There are numerous obstacles to synchronizing transportation with other supply chain activities. And part of the challenge is a variety of supply chain trends and external issues that must be addressed. These include the growth of outsourcing, particularly offshore manufacturing, which creates major transportation challenges. Transportation capacity constraints pose another challenge to organizations moving freight through the supply chain. Then, rising transportation rates present yet another major concern for organization. Transportation rate variation adds to the complexity of the transportation function. Capacity, freight volume, and fuel costs each influence the rates charged by carriers. The transportation industry is also impacted by governmental requirements that affect cost structures and service capabilities. Let's look at some modes of transportation. When the need to move freight arises, supply chain managers can choose from among 5 main modes of transportation. And we'll drill down a bit into each one, but these are truck, rail, air, water, and pipeline. Additionally, intermodal transportation combines the use of 2 or more of the basic modes to move freight from its origin to destination. Trucks tend to focus on local and regional markets, while the other modes provide long-distance moves of larger freight quantities. In terms of freight expense, organizations spent $907 billion for transportation services in 2014. More than 77% of the total was spent on trucking services. Truck, multimodal, and air transportation are premium-priced services for moving higher-value goods. Rail, water, and pipeline provide economically priced services for lower-value commodities. As you probably know, especially if you live in Long Beach near the port, motor carriage is the most widely used mode of transportation in the domestic supply chain. The sophisticated U.S. highway network permits trucks to reach all points of the country. Because there are not significant barriers to entry, the trucking industry is highly competitive and made up of 532,024 interstate motor carriers and intrastate hazardous materials motor carriers. The trucking industry is comprised of for-hire and private fleet operations. Private fleet transport freight that is owned by the organization that is operating the trucks. As I mentioned earlier, much of the freight moved by the trucking industry is regional in nature, moving within a 500-mile radius of the origin. For-hire trucking companies are broken down into three general types. Truckload carriers, or TL, handle single large shipments per trailer that exceed 15,000 pounds or use the full cubic capacity of a trailer. TL carriers provide direct service, picking up the load at the origin point and delivering it directly to the destination without stopping at freight handling terminals. Less than truckload, or LTL carriers, move multiple shipments ranging from 150 pounds to up to 15,000 pounds in each trailer. National LTL carriers use a hub and spoke network of local and regional terminal facilities to sort and consolidate shipments moving to a particular market area. Regional LTL carriers focus their efforts on a particular area of the country. Small package carriers handle shipments up to 150 pounds and move multiple shipments on a single van or truck. They use networks similar to LTL carriers and move freight efficiently throughout the country. Over time, the lines between carrier types have blurred. Customers prefer to work with motor carriers that can provide multiple capabilities. In response, FedEx and UPS transitioned from small package carriers to full-service trucking companies with TL and LTL divisions. Additionally, regional LTL carriers offer some direct TL-like services, and TL carriers are providing multi-stop deliveries for their customers. While motor carriers are the primary force in domestic transportation, trucking is useful for shipping goods to an adjacent country. Between the United States and Mexico, or Canada, for example, it is very common in Europe, where transport distances are relatively short. Motor carriers also play a major role in intermodal shipments, moving freight to airports and ports and picking up freight for delivery at the destination airports and ports. To minimize paperwork and border crossing delays, international truck shipments are often made in bond. The carrier seals the trailer at its origin and does not open it again until it reaches its destination country. The trucking industry faces key challenges related to labor, costs, and competition. The American Trucking Association estimates that the current shortage of 48,000 drivers could rise to 175,000 by 2024. Though trucking companies use fuel surcharges to pass along rising energy costs, they are not always able to recoup rising labor, insurance, and maintenance expenses. Finally, competition continues to be fierce within the trucking industry, as well as with other modes of transportation. Customers expect near-perfect performance and will look for different options if service disruptions occur or rates spike. Railroads transport more than 2.2 billion tons of freight annually, despite a lack of direct accessibility to all parts of the supply chain. Rail service is perceived as being a slow, inflexible, and inconsistent mode. The industry is dominated by a very small number of large firms. BNSF Railway, CSX Transportation, Norfolk Southern Railway, and Union Pacific Railroad are the dominant carriers in the industry. However, as none of these rail carriers services the entire country, they work together to provide coast-to-coast rail service. This mode requires a large investment in terminals, equipment, and trackage to begin operations, and the accompanying huge capacity allows railroads to be a decreasing cost industry. In other words, as output or ton miles increase, the average per unit production cost decreases. Hence, rail transportation is primarily used for the long-distance movement of low-value raw materials and manufactured products, but they also handle some high-value goods, primarily automobiles and intermodal containers filled with imported finished goods. The rail industry faces a number of challenges moving forward. Capacity is a key issue as volume has surged. With the track infrastructure remaining largely unchanged, the additional freight crews and equipment have continued to clog the system. Interest in intermodal rail service is high, but service quality is an issue among potential customers, and the railroads must address their congestion issues and deliver goods on time. Rail is primarily a domestic mode of transportation, though it can be valuable for cross-border movement of commodities and containers. The constraints on international rail transport include limited water crossing points and differing track gauges between countries. The rail industry is comprised of the following two carrier types: line haul freight carriers, which provide service between major markets and customers within those markets, and short line and regional carriers, which provide the local and regional links between individual customers and the national rail network of the Class 1 railroads. Air cargo transportation is a specialized mode that moves 35% of the value of world trade by value of goods. International air freight movement is handled by a broader range of organizations, with FedEx, Korean Airlines, Cathay Pacific, and Lufthansa recording the largest ton kilometers activity in the industry. Air transportation is used to ship small quantities of high value, low weight, semi-finished, and finished goods. The following two primary carrier types dominate this mode. Combination carriers move freight and passengers often on the same trip with cargo loaded in the belly of the aircraft. And air cargo carriers focus exclusively on the movement of letters and envelopes and freight. Air carriers can also be separated on the basis of service capabilities into integrated and non-integrated carriers. Air carriers rely on freight forwarders or the customers to provide delivery service to and from the airport. Water transportation has played a significant role in the development of many countries and is a major facilitator of international trade. Globally, water carriers dominate all other modes, garnering approximately half of the international freight revenue and handling nearly all tonnage. Domestic water carriers compete with railroads for long-distance movement of low-value, high-density bulk cargoes that mechanical devices can easily load and unload. Primary commodities moved include petroleum, coal, iron ore, chemicals, forest products, and other commodities. However, international water carriers handle a wider variety of goods. Every conceivable type of cargo is transported via ocean carrier, from low-value commodities to imported automobiles. Many imported consumer goods flow to the United States in ocean shipping containers. Water carriers operate in a highly competitive marketplace and face significant financial challenges. First, there's significant overcapacity in the container shipping sector due to the number of megavessels that are being put into service. This is occurring at a time when the strategies of nearshoring and onshoring reduce the need for trans-Pacific service. Second, another factor that you may be familiar with, of course, is the congestion at major ports and transfer points for containers that disrupt freight flows. New technologies and infrastructures are needed to alleviate these choke points. Finally, the schedule reliability of liner service continues to lag other modes. Container ships are critical to the globalization of trade as they transport standardized containers, which are commonly referred to as TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, or FEUs, 40-foot equivalent units. Bulk carriers carry cargoes with low value-to-weight ratios, such as ores, grain, coal, and scrap metal. Tankers carry the largest amount of cargo by tonnage, usually on a charter basis. And then there are pipelines. Pipelines handle a significant proportion of all intercity ton mileage of freight. It's a unique mode of transportation as the equipment is fixed in place and the product moves through it in high volume. Pipelines effectively protect the product from contamination and also provide a warehousing function. Pipelines provide the most economical form of transportation with the lowest cost per ton of any mode. The vast majority of products moved by pipeline are liquids and gases. Then there's intermodal transportation services, which refers to the use of two or more carriers of different modes in the origin to destination movement of freight. The primary benefits of intermodalism include the following. Greater accessibility is created by linking the individual modes. Trucks provide the flow between airports and the customers. Railroads can also facilitate the use of domestic river transportation and international ocean transportation. Overall cost efficiency can be achieved without sacrificing service quality or accessibility. The speed and accessibility of trucks would be useful for the initial pickup and final delivery, while the cross-country transportation would be handled by the cost-efficient railroads. Last, intermodal transportation facilitates global trade.